They say that twins share the same blood, but I tell you that one of them sold hers. Fatou has everything: gold, beauty, power. Afi has nothing. Only kindness, only peace. Fatou hates Afi because she sleeps in peace, so she took all her men, all of them. But there was one she wanted to keep, her husband. Afi found out Rahime was cheating on her with her sister. Now you will see what happens when a woman with no soul loses the only man she loved. In a village in the Kolda region, in the south of Senegal, where the Casamance River moves like a sacred vein between the old kapok trees, two souls shared the same womb before they even saw the light of the world. Afi and Fatou, twins joined by blood but separate in every other way, had just turned 24 when the gods and the people began to count their debts. Afi, the older by a few minutes, had a thin body, almost fragile. The village women called it Sukundala, the body that never eats enough. Her small shoulders, thin arms, flat chest, and modest hips made her easy to miss on the dirt paths. But her eyes were not easy to miss, two dark almonds with a soft light inside them, the kind of light that belongs to souls who knew humility before they learned to walk. Afi was respectful. She said, "Salam alaikum," to every elder she passed. She knelt before her mother without ever raising her head too high, and she would give her last bowl of sour milk to a neighbor's child if it was crying. The village women said about her, "Even meanness stays away from her." Out of pity, Fatou, born a few moments later, seemed to have taken all the light that should have been for both of them. Her body was a challenge to the seasons, big curves that made the men stop and stare, a thin waist, hips that seemed to dance on their own when she walked, and dark, polished skin that caught the sunlight and threw it back like sparks. She was rich, very rich. Since the age of 19, she owned herds of cattle whose horns touched the sky. She had fields of millet and peanuts that went as far as the eye could see. She had a house made of cement with glass windows, while others lived in mud huts. She wore Dutch wax cloth she brought from Dakar. She wore heavy gold jewelry that made sound with every move, and her sandals never touched the dust without a straw mat put down first. At least, that was what she made sure happened. But the deepest wound, the one that spread like poison under the skin, came when Afi met Soleiman, a young man with a gentle look, who worked at the blacksmith's. He loved Afi for her kindness. He looked at her the way one looks at a spring in the desert. For 3 months, they shared shy glances, secret smiles, and stolen words between the well and the market. Fatou, who could not stand that someone, especially a man, loved her sister more than he wanted her, decided to destroy it. She arranged to meet Soleiman one evening near the kapok tree. She wore a cloth that men called dangerous, and she spoke to him with a voice she had never used with him before. She told him that Afi laughed at him behind his back, that she was seeing a richer man, that she did not deserve his love. Soleiman, hurt, stopped coming. When Afi found out, she did not cry in front of Fatou. She waited until night, went into the abandoned millet field behind the village, and there, under the stars, she let tears fall so silently that the earth drank them without a sound. From that day on, Fatou began using her body as a weapon. Every time a man, married or not, came close to Afi with honest intentions, Fatou stepped in. A smile here, a bare shoulder there, a whispered promise in the ear, and the man disappeared from Afi's path like dew under the sun. Fatou did not sleep with them, not always, but she planted enough doubt, enough confusion, that Afi's flower could never bloom. The people in the village wondered where Fat's money came from. At 19, she had become the richest woman in the area. The herds, the lands, the jewels, all of it had appeared like magic. Some said she had married a rich man who died suddenly. Others whispered that she had protectors in Ziguinchor. Few people knew the truth. The truth was older, darker, and it had a name. A pact made when Fatou was 17. In a nearby village, there lived a man everyone called the poorest in the world. His real name was Smin, but people had forgotten it because his condition had erased his identity. He lived in a hut without a roof, ate what others threw away, and women fled from his eyes like they fled from leprosy. The local Marabout said a curse was on him, that he was the sponge man, the one on whom the curse had settled so the village would be spared. Fatou, then 17 and already thirsty for power, heard of a powerful Marabout in the Tambacounda region, a man whose reputation crossed rivers, Bouzaka. She made the trip alone, without telling anyone, and found Bouzaka in a hut surrounded by animal skins and amulets that clicked in the wind. Bouzaka was a small man, bald, with yellow eyes like a snake's. He watched her enter and said, Before she even opened her mouth, "You want wealth. You are ready to do anything." Fatou did not even blink. "I am ready." Bouzaka then explained the price. To get wealth that would never run out, she had to marry the poorest man in the village, the one no one wanted, the one whose misery was a belly button connecting the earth to hell. She had to live with him, share his roof, his bed, his life. She had to give him a child, only one. And the day that child was conceived, when life began to grow in her belly, the man would die. The curse that weighed on him would break, and all the misery he had absorbed would turn into gold, gold that would come to her, alone, only to her. But there was another price. One Bouzaka did not tell her right away, or that she chose not to hear. Her heart would dry up. With every wealth gained, a piece of her humanity would leave her body, until nothing remained in her but perfect beauty filled with emptiness. Fatou accepted. She married Smin, the poorest, in a ceremony where the guests laughed under their breath. She lived with him for 9 months in a hut without a roof, sleeping on an old mat, drinking water from the same dirty well. Smin, who had never known a woman's kindness, loved her with a mad devotion. He gave her the few seeds of millet he could find. He watched over her at night. He promised her mountains even though he did not own a single stone. Fatou despised him. Every morning, she woke with only one hope, that her belly would grow round. It happened on the 76th day of their marriage. She felt the sickness rise in the early morning, and she also knew that Smin was going to die. He died 3 days later, struck down on the path to the market, his neck broken in a fall that no one could explain. The doctor at the clinic spoke of a curse. The elders said that death had finally caught the one it had forgotten. Fatou said nothing. She cried in front of the neighbors, for show. But her tears were dry like the hot season. The child she carried, a boy, was born 7 months later, too small, too pale, without life. He was stillborn. The pact, however, was sealed. Smin was dead. The child had been conceived. The wealth came. It came like a flood. First a stream, then a river, then an ocean. The herds appeared in her pastures as if they had always been there. The lands grew. Money flowed from sources she did not even control, distant inheritances, anonymous gifts, opportunities that only she could see. Fatou became rich. But she also became, as Bouzaka had predicted, empty. Before returning to settle permanently in her home village, Fatou spent 3 years wandering through the neighboring villages, like a fire that cannot find wood big enough to go out. It was during those years that she perfected her darkest art, the destruction of others. In the village of Dai Kabia, she seduced the husband of Ndiaye, a woman 8 months pregnant. The man left his wife and 3 children to follow Fatou until Fatou, tired of him, threw him away like a chewed mango skin. Ndiaye miscarried and went mad. People saw her wandering near the cemetery, talking to a belly she stroked in the air. In the village of Medina Gaunas, Fatou set her sights on a young man who was promised to the village chief's daughter. She did not want the man, she did not want anyone in particular, but she wanted to see chaos. She wanted lives to break. She arranged for the young woman to find her fiancé in a compromising situation with a woman she did not know. The young woman, humiliated, hanged herself from a mango tree. The fiancé, eaten by guilt, left the village and never returned. Was the chief's daughter Afi's sister? No. But that did not matter to Fatou. The victims piled up. 3 marriages destroyed. 2 men beaten by their fathers-in-law over accusations of cheating that Fatou had orchestrated herself. A young woman who lost her dowry because Fatou spread the rumor that she was no longer a virgin. Each time, Fatou looked at the ruins she left behind with a smile that looked like a question. Does it hurt? No. Again, I want it to hurt more. When she returned to her home village, she was already a legend, a dark legend that mothers told to their daughters to warn them, do not be like Fatou. Beauty without a soul ends up devouring the one who carries it. But Fatou did not see herself that way. She saw herself as victorious. She saw herself above everyone, untouchable, invincible. Her eyes fell on only one person, Afi, her sister, the thin one, the poor one, the good one. She who had nothing, but who slept peacefully at night. She who had never hurt anyone, but whom everyone loved. She who had not made a pact with Bouzaka, but who had kept her soul intact. Fatou looked at her and felt an ancient rage eating at her bones. Because despite all her wealth, all her beauty, all her power, there was one thing Fatou did not have, and that Afi possessed in abundance: peace. And that peace, Fatou had sworn to tear from her. Thus ends the first act of this story, where two sisters who shared the same womb now stand face to face like two banks of a river that nothing will ever bring together. One carries peace in her empty hands, the other carries war in her full hands. The village of Kolda, this cradle of shadows and light, holds its breath, because what you have just read is only the first stone of a building that is already burning. Fat's hatred has not yet spoken its last word, and Afi's patience, as deep as it is, has limits that even the angels do not know. It will take you where masks fall, where blood speaks louder than pacts, where a man will finally dare to look at Afi as she deserves to be looked at, and where Fatou, for the first time, might meet someone as stubborn as her. You will know what happens to the pact with Bouzaka. You will know if Afi's peace can truly stand against the storm. You will know above all what happens when a woman, who no longer has a soul, decides to go after the one who has too much. Do not miss what comes next. Subscribe to be notified as soon as Act 2 is revealed, because this story, believe me, is only just beginning to show its teeth. See you soon for the continuation.